So Bob, you got the car restored. How long did it take?
Well, it's from the first time you came here and did the first video, it's been 5 years. This car was meant to be produced, and then at the last minute they decided to pull the plug on it, and they were not going to build a 71 Boss 302.
But Ford did build one car on August 3rd, 1970.
All the parts to build the car were already in the parts and service system.
So they could build it, but why? Ford had already decided to scrub the 302 and go with a
Boss 351, and we're going to introduce it sometime in late November.
What's fascinating is nobody ever got to see this car. No factory photos have ever surfaced, probably none taken, until now. Name me a car that they produced one of and then quit making them. I mean, you can talk about a special color, or they only made so many of these with a 4-speed and air conditioning. We're talking about a separate model line. The 1971 Boss 302. They quit. One car.
You know, I plan on keeping the car. My original goal was to have one of each Boss car, and if you're going to have a complete Boss collection, you got to have a 71 Boss 302.
Andrew Hack knew this day would come. He sold the car to Bob.
You do now.
Yeah.
We've all sold cars that caused us to grin and bear it later.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's the kind of thing where...
But in Andrew Hack's case, he knew what he was selling.
It's a valuable thing. It's part of your life, basically.
On the right is Bob's restoration shop, where Mustang people had gathered to see the final result. On the left is his Ford showroom.
Yeah, there were two sets. That motivated me to sell it to him. He was the man who had all the parts. He had the reputation.
Okay, so quick story. We're at Barrett Jackson, I believe 2014. Bob Perkins is there, and I'm there, and various friends, and we're all walking around looking at cars. And of course, Bob's holding court certain places. He is a Mustang show car judge for the MCA, helped found the rules. And we run into a Boss 429. And Bob starts saying what is correct on it, what is not. And there were quite a few incorrect things on the car. And as he walked away, a guy that was listening came up to me and he says, "Who does that guy think he is anyway? Bob Perkins?" And I looked at him and I said, "Well, that's exactly who he is, Bob Perkins." 5 years earlier, we did a video on finding this car. To watch that story, click on this link up here about how Andrew Hack found the car on eBay, shipped it home to Wisconsin, and eventually sold it to Bob Perkins. It was done, restored. We came back to check it out. Did a second video on restoring this car.
We tried to replicate the way the car was actually built, not what was typical for a 71 Mustang, and built on the special show car line, what they called their premier paint and body for a car that was going to go to the show, and it was sent out to Vegas for the new car introduction.
This was the 1971 Ford Dealer Announcement Show, Western Region, August 15, 1970.
It says right on all the invoices, shipped to Las Vegas Convention Center.
The car was sold to Ford Marketing Corporation in Pico Rivera, California. That's the Los Angeles Ford district.
Ford's typical assembly procedure was to do the two-tone, the black or the argent, before they painted the car. That's a stripe, but this is all paint. The taillight panel's painted, the rear valance panel's painted, down the side of the car, that's all black paint. In the hood, they paint the black and then they tape it off and paint the rest of the car yellow.
How was this one different?
It was painted yellow first and then the black was applied.
Everywhere?
Yeah, and you can see the rear valance, the reason I saved that like that, they had a license plate on there and they painted right over the license plate. And I've got the pictures of the valance that you're going to reference that I took showing the valance when it was original paint, and it looked like that.
Why was they do this different? I don't understand.
What was painted on the special paint line to go to the car show, the leaded joints, first day of production. Plus the car did not start out, it was an 02 body style. It wasn't going to be a Mach 1. so they wouldn't have had to do the blackout on the bottom. But when they get into the Boss package and they added the G code, and then the second invoice says it's a Boss 351 Mach 1, which
1F05R, meaning Mach 1 Boss 351.
you know, that never existed either. The main reason that the car was finished, first day of production, the new car introduction show is coming up for the dealers to fly out to Vegas and check out the new vehicles, and they had to have something cool and sporty, so this is it.
Yes, this is it. And this was it in 1969 with the first Boss 302. Same deal with the 1970 models. This was Ford's show car. They built 14 of these, and after their pampered days as promo cars, these Boss 302s wound up in customer garages, got sold. Ford was just carrying on an old family tradition. And at the same time, they were laying Easter eggs. See how that stripe cuts into the side marker light? On the production car, goes below it. The show car has chrome around those rear tail lamps. The production car has blackout trim. Stainless steel rear window molding on the show car. The production car uses blackout trim around that rear window. We could go on like with differences in the taillight panel in this show car, but we're about to get the car rotated to the angle of the 1970 Ford press photo of this very car. Freeze. Now, go back to 1970. Today, 1970. And look, got those factory Magstar wheels. Got that pop-open style Mach 1 gas cap, but the Boss 302 lettering is gone.
So that's good that you did the restoration exactly the way they did it on the line right here.
I tried to duplicate it as close as I could.
And that's why you have this, so.
Yeah, and then some of the unique features, you know, no other Boss car in 71 got the honeycomb taillight panel. That was a Mach 1 option. Same thing with the flip down gas cap. You know, Boss didn't have that. And it's also an Autolite. I got that from Scott Skoliski. That's really a rare piece. I was happy that he let me have that.
Much flashier than the twist-off cap used on all Boss 351s.
This is the only Boss car ever made with chrome exhaust tips. And if you look at the invoice, it says right on the invoice.
All right, and then what?
I must have took the book over there. On the invoice, we need to take a picture that it shows twin exhaust tips.
Actually, tracked it down later, it says tailpipe extension.
And no Boss car ever got twin exhaust tips except this car.
Of course, the Mach 1 had them, of 71, and they were all chrome. Ford built 14 of these in 1970. They might have gone way bigger in 71, but that new Boss didn't make showrooms until November. Oh, look at that engine, Boss 351. This show car is loaded with special features, what they call Easter eggs today.
The wheels are called out there, and they call them some kind of a funky name. They didn't call them Magnum 500s.
Popular on the Mach 1,
But it's on that invoice. We need to reference that.
500 mag wheels.
So these are Magstar, but they have different center caps than the 67 Shelby.
Well, no, they got the same center caps. They just have different emblems in them.
A galloping horse in the Mustang, a cobra snake in the Shelby.
Original wheel weights with the diamond on them. The white's apparently for 1.5 ounces, and they have yellow and pink and white depending on what the weight was. The tires are all date coded. The wheels are date coded. There's printing in the tread. You can see the yellow stripe in the tread. Just the nicest set of Goodyears I've ever had. Those are really going to be pretty.
Wow.
The car show was going to be in August, so they didn't have apparently time to put a different motor or whatever in there, so they left the 302 in the car, my opinion anyway. They changed the 02. You can see where they hand painted the 5.1 on there. And I would say they probably left the hood closed or raised the hood. And how many people would have known the difference between a Boss 302 and a Boss 351 motor and a 71 Mustang back in 1971?
Jim Smart, former editor of Mustang Monthly, dug up this black and white photo out of the old Peterson files of this same car. Easier to see how the 5.1 is different. Makes us wonder how Ford doctored the 302 to a 351 on the front fenders. In this color press photo, the 5.1 looks like it's replaced 02.
The rear taillight panel doesn't have seams. That was all leaded in. It was kind of what they called their premier paint and body for a car that was going to go for the new car introduction. It's also the same cap they used on the Eleanor cars.
So that's what 71 Boss 02 is going to have.
No, not necessarily. It ended up on this car.
Because it's a show car like this 70.
And it's also got blacked out taillights. I mean, it's first day of production stuff. I don't know why they did it, but
Bright trim on the production Boss 351.
that'll be the only Boss car that ever had a honeycomb taillight panel or flip down gas cap or chrome tips. That's just the way they did it. Now this car being first day of production too, it's got early sheet metal. See, originally they must have had intentions of putting an adjustment bumper in the taillight panel there because it's got the flat spot there. Same thing on the deck, but later cars don't have that. That's a whole different piece of sheet metal in there.
Okay.
The other thing is seeing that the car has the Kelsey Hayes wheels on it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you got a flat tire, the Kelsey Hayes lug nuts would not fit on the Space Saver standard black wheel. So there's 5 original standard lug nuts in case you got a flat tire. And then this is a pretty cool piece too. That's an original assembly line socket for chrome lug nuts. See how it's recessed in there to fit the pointed head on the lug nut so it don't scratch it. And then these are just the backing off the original stickers, Ford 3M stickers that I put on the car. They say Boss 302, say 71 Boss 302. That's the deck lid. See how it's got a pattern to go around the trunk latch there. See? And then these go on the fender. There's the instruction pack for the Detroit locker. I don't know, I've probably had that for 25 years.
Now the manufacturer's plate.
Each manufacturer got so many, and they could put them on their car and drive around town with them, not get harassed.
Oh.
And then see the Detroit locker sticker that goes on the dash up there? Similar to what they did with like the 65 Chevy. So it could have been a 429 Mach 1 Super Cobra Jet.
Can we look at these tags now? Because this is one of the most interesting things on the car.
Yeah, it was one of the toughest things to paint around too, because I didn't want to mess up. It's really hard to blend the paint when you got an old dirty sticker on there. But that's it.
So the one underneath
is the Boss 302.
Yeah. Let's see.
And see the G code and the Y code is the 411 Detroit locker.
And then Ford just
put the other one right over the top.
Whoever fixed that, good thing they didn't peel off the bottom sticker.
But yeah, they explained in that one sheet there, it was a $75 credit to change the tag on the dash and the door that the dealership got for changing that tag. It's on one of those invoices. I'm gonna put my glasses.
Now what are we going to look at?
You wanted to see that credit they got for,
Changing out the VIN.
yeah, right there, $75. Labor charges.
When the car got sold to the public,
Some other cool stuff in the trunk here. There's a promotional bag they gave away at the 71 new car introduction. I'm not sure if that's from Vegas or from Detroit. Well, it does say Las Vegas.
Where'd you get that?
I don't know. I must have bought it on eBay or something. It didn't come with the car. I can tell you that.
This is from the 71 car show?
It says Countdown 70 to Intro 71 Las Vegas style. So once this thing gets out a little bit, somebody will have a picture of this thing sitting at the Vegas Convention Center.
That's what this car really needs, a picture at the Vegas Convention Center.
Wouldn't that be cool? Yeah. And in 1971, it just happened to be in Las Vegas. They had to send this car out there because the car show was going to be in August. They didn't have time to put a different motor or whatever in there, so they left the 302 in the car. I acquired a complete 71 Boss 302 assembly line motor that had the clutch, the bell housing, the smog. It was a complete assembly line motor ready to go in the car in 1971. I'm going to show you some of the unique features on the motor for 71 that I wouldn't have had a clue as to how they were originally if I didn't find this original, or the motor didn't find me, this original assembly line 71 Boss 302 motor. The air cleaner is a standard 70, late in the year edition 70 Boss 302 air cleaner with an Autolite FA41 air filter element. The air cleaner and the lid and all the stickers and decals, the air cleaner, snorkel, and the heat shield are all new old stock original paint. So that was kind of neat. And the motor itself is still about 95% original paint. I had to do a little blending here and where there was a little bit of oxidation on things, but the blue paint on the engine is almost all original paint. This is the only 71 Mustang that ever had a manual choke with the Holley carburetor. That's the same cable as the 70 Boss 302, and if you look in the parts book, it lists the cable as 69 to 71. So it's in the parts book just like if it was for a 70.
What's really odd is where it says 71, that applies to one car, this one.
Probably the most unique piece that I would have really had a problem trying to replicate is this accelerator cable bracket. It bolts onto the back of the carburetor studs, similar to a 70 or 69 Boss 302, but since in 71 they changed the throttle cable style, this is all unique just to this motor. I would have probably never found one of those cables or brackets. And the cable is actually the same cable that they used on the 71 429 Super Cobra Jet with a Holley. But on the 429 Super Cobra Jet, their bracket bolted onto the intake rather than the carburetor studs. So that's a pretty cool piece for this car anyway. Nobody else would care about it, but that is a neat piece.
And that carburetor came with the engine, huh?
Yep. The engine oil cooler is mandatory with the 411 Detroit locker. The cooler is the same as the 6970. The lines are unique just to the 71 Boss 302. Numbers out of the Ford Autolite parts and service manual show that the numbers for these are for 71 Boss 302 only.
D for the 70s, 1 for the model year, applying to just one car. One car in the world. Same for this upper oil cooler bracket, new old stock.
And that's the only one, so I guess only one guy can have the complete Boss collection. So for now, that's me, I guess. The shocks are unique to the car. It's got the engineering number on there, DOZF 18080-B1. That's the same engineering number as a 71 Boss 351 shock absorber or a 70 Boss 302. But these here are special shocks. See, they got XE tag on them. They were adjustables. They were made by Gabriel, Canada. They were planning on putting adjustable shocks on this car. And I got these from Ford Engineer. And you can see these are rebuildable. They come apart here, they unscrew, and those are extra heavy duty shocks. But I thought the XE tags and stuff's pretty cool with the engineering number on there. The drive shaft here. Now this is a piece that I did find in a dealership. That's a brand new Boss 351 drive shaft. Came with the Ford greaseless U-joints in it. Had all the color stripes on it. And it's the same Boss 351, Boss 302, the same drive shaft in 71. So that's not a remade one. That's just an original one that was in the attic of the Ford garage.
These mufflers are original?
Yep, original mufflers.
Specific to the 71, right?
Yeah, one side's the same as a 71 429 Cobra Jet, according to the book. Now, the sound deadener on the car here, if you can see the wide spray pattern, that's how wide a pattern that gun sprayed. I saved all that. It was nice enough where I could preserve it. The drippies and the primer on the floor, we saved all that stuff. We just kind of cleaned it with lacquer thinner and steel wool and Scotch-Brite pad, and then I put some of the body color and the primer overspray over the top of it to clean it up. See all these little drips and runs in the primer? See them? All through here.
They drip after they paint it?
Yeah, see right here. And see, then when they baked it, it popped the little drippies.
Yeah, I see them up there.
Yeah.
Kind of look like spot welds.
Yeah. 411 Detroit locker. There's the tag.
And that came with the car?
No, it didn't come with the car. It's an original one, though. Because when I got the car, it had the 350 rear end and they put in there for the H code. And, but I had to round that up.
Because on the sheet, you see that it came with 411, right?
Yeah, on the invoice. The gas tank's nice. See the shipping label on the tank there? It's dated 5 of 70. I had that upstairs in the inventory. The tailpipes have the tag on there, the part number tag. The side of the chrome tips here have the engineering number stamped on them. And there is a left and a right on these. See that little tab there? That's spot welded on there. That's a guide to slide the tip in there when you tighten it up. So if you don't have forward exhaust, it don't matter if you use the left or right because it doesn't have the stop tab on it anyway. There's also two different styles of chrome tips. These are the shorter ones. And then these are the original clamps. See, the original clamps say Fumoco on them and 9A, and they're the thin clamps. The later service ones have the fatter clamps that were the service ones, like the D5 regular tailpipe clamps.
And you reproduce the color codes on the leaf springs here.
Yeah,
Are these the leaf springs that came with the car?
yeah, they are.
Tell me about this spray paint under here.
Well, you can see this was painted yellow first, and when they painted the black on it, they didn't do the greatest job. You can see where they didn't get full coverage on everything. The back sides of the ribbing has still got the body color showing through, which I think is kind of cool detail.
So they sprayed it yellow first, but on normal 71 they would have done what?
They would have done the black first, and then they tape it off and do the body color, which always seemed kind of strange to me, but I'm sure they had it had to be a time saver for some reason, but that's the way they did it in the Boss 302s in 70 also. When they put the holes in here for the stuff don't line up where the dam, you know, when the car's down and it's sitting level and the door settle, it's closer, but they didn't do a very good job of lining that up. I can make those fit better, but I got to take them off and play with the holes a little bit.
But what about, isn't that the way that the assembly line?
Well, that's the way it was, so that's why I didn't mess with it yet. But I know some smart aleck will say, well, that don't fit worth a shit, you know. But just like, you know, people say, well, I don't like orange peel in the paint. You know, a lot of people are like that. Well, too bad. That's the way they came. You know, if you don't like it, don't look at it. You know, that's the way it should be.
What about the front of the car and the grill here?
That's just a Mach 1 grill, or a Boss 351 used the same grill. And it's a 71 Mach bumper, you know, so it's got the painted bumper. That's a 71 Mach 1 or Boss 351 spoiler. I didn't put my smooth one on because, see, this one has a little bit of texture in it. The ones that came on the car were almost smooth, and I've got a new one in the bag yet, but it's too chancy winching them on and off the trailer or driving around the parking lot.
What do we want to look at?
The bare metal up in there now. See? Never see a car with spot welds showing through, like it's always rusted. Most of them are all rotted out in there. The seams, see how they rush on the inner side of the fender? That's how you can tell if you got a service fender on there too. They never put that back on there. That's so that the splash shields don't rub the primer off and they rust through there.
Yeah, you can say whatever you want about California, but the climate sure is ideal for saving bare metal surfaces on old Mustangs.
You know, Andy, if you had really been a shark,
Yeah.
You could put it out there on the internet worldwide. You could say, I found the boss.
Sure.
Where you
I
at?
felt Bob needed a charitable moment in his life, and I said, you know, this would be the thing to do.
See,
Bob said to me, I've got the parts, you've got the car. So either you got to buy all the parts for me, or I got to buy the car from you. I didn't feel that I was going to invest that kind of money in buying the parts from Bob, although I'm sure he would have been reasonable.